Well, Unit A3, Constructs and Models. Model. Model is an abstract theoretical description of what it means to be able to communicate in a second language. All models of language ability have three dimensions. One, what it means to know a language, a model of knowledge. Two, underlying factors related to the ability to use language, a model of performance. And three, actual language use. The models help us to articulate the theoretical rationale for inferences as we draw from test discourse to the abilities of an individual test taker. Now, framework, what it is. Framework mediates between a model and a test specifications, which are generative blueprints or plans for a specific task. It selects those parts of model that are relevant and useful for specific test purposes and defines or limits the test construct for particular tests, making it possible to write detailed descriptions. Test specification. Well, test specification acts as a blueprint that translates a construct framework into concrete tasks and items. It ensures consistency across different versions of a test and supports validity, reliability, and fairness by fixing key features in advance. Now the models. The first one is Canale and Swain's model of communicative competence. Canale and Swain produced the first and most influential model of what they call communicative competence. It allows a more valid and reliable measurement of language communicative skills. They argue that for them it refers to grammatical competence, knowledge of rules of grammar, and sociolinguistic competence, knowledge of language use. They also distinguish between communicative competence and communicative performance, as communicative performance refers to actual use of language in real-world situations. For instance, Canale and Swain argue that tests need to tap both aspects of communicative competence through the task. Canale and Swain presents a model of knowledge into which sociolinguistic competence is added. Then they add a sociolinguistic. However, they do not have model of performance. So, model includes 1. Communicative competence, a model of knowledge, which it consists of grammatical competence, knowledge of grammar, sociolinguistic competence, knowledge of the sociocultural rules of language use and rules of discourse, and strategic competence, knowledge of how to overcome problems when faced with difficulties in communication. 2. Actual communication, the demonstration of knowledge in actual language performance. Now, question that we have is this: what are reasons for studying communicative competence in testing? Firstly, the distinction between communicative competence and actual performance means that tests should contain tasks that require actual performance as well as tasks that measure knowledge. Secondly, as communicative competence was viewed as knowledge, discrete point tests were not seen for some purposes. Discrete point tests use items that test just one isolated item of grammar. So, thirdly, it could be used to develop criteria for evaluation of language performance. Next model is Canale adaptation model. Canale expanded and refined the model, added one more competence or competent, which means it is discourse competence, ability to connect utterances and form coherent spoken or written text. Further, Canale stopped to use performance and began to use actual communication. As Canale stated, knowledge and skill are part of communicative competence, while manifestation in real situation is part of performance. In this adaptation, the meaning of sociocultural competence changed and discourse was removed. Discourse competence was introduced a new category, meaning the ability to produce unified spoken or written texts in different genres. Bachman's model of communicative language ability, CLA. Bachman's model of CLA is an expansion of all the models. It does two things which make it different from earlier models. Firstly, it clearly distinguishes between knowledge and skill. Secondly, it explicitly characterizes how various components interact with each other and with context. So, we have in Bachman's model, we have knowledge of structure, which it is knowledge of the world, language competence, knowledge of language. Then we have strategic competence, psychophysiological mechanisms, and the context of situation. In Bachman's CLA model, strategic competence refers to capacity to use components of language competence in contextualized communicative use. So, strategic competence refers to capacity to use components of language competence in contextualized communicative use. Psychophysiological mechanisms enable actual execution of language. Language competence, as we said in Bachman, it has two parts, organizational competence and pragmatic competence. Organizational competence, we have grammatical competence, textual competence, and in pragmatic competence, we have illocutionary competence, ideational, manipulative, heuristic, imaginative, and sociolinguistic competence. In Bachman model of CLA, language use is explained through three components: assessment component, planning component, and execution component. Now, next model, Bachman and Palmer model. This model revises Bachman's earlier model by adding affective factors, topical knowledge, and redefining strategic competence. Then, Bachman and Palmer model revises Bachman's earlier model by adding effective factors, topical knowledge, and redefining strategic competence. The most significant changes are introduction of effective factors in language use, relabeling knowledge structure with topical knowledge, and reconceptualizing strategic competence as a set of metacognitive strategies, and it also highlights effective schemata. Now, by effective schemata, we mean emotional side of topical knowledge, such as memories, feelings, past experiences that influence whether a person wants to engage with a task and how flexible they will use language. A new view of strategic competence here we had. As we said, for strategic competence we had new view. It was redefined as metacognitive strategies or higher order processes that explain interaction of knowledge and effective components. It has three main processing: goal setting, assessment, and planning. In other words, strategic competence was more general, but in this model it is more complex and detailed. So, in this model, which it is Bachman and Palmer model, we have topical knowledge, language knowledge, effective factors, strategic components, which it is important, it's in the heart of it, and characteristics of language use and test as environment. Now, next model is Celce-Murcia, Dörnyei, and Thurrell's model of communicative competence. Since Canale and Swain, no scholar had really produced detailed syllabus-oriented model of communicative competence for CLT. Many existing syllabus were not based on clear model of communicative competence. In this model, they wanted to give detailed description of what communicative competence entails, so that teachers and material writers can use its subcomponents directly in syllabus design. This model is made up of 5 components. 1. Discourse competence. This is central in the model, at the middle, and it's about how learners organize and connect sentences into coherent, cohesive spoken or written text. Then we have actual competence. This factor is new compared to Canale and Swain. It means knowing how to understand and perform speech acts. Apologizing, requesting, inviting. It separates the abilities to handle speech acts from sociolinguistic issues such as politeness. 3. Sociocultural competence, renamed from sociolinguistic competence. Knowledge of social and cultural norms that affect language use. They renamed it to distinguish it from actual competence, which is more about speech act. 4. Linguistic competence, the term for grammatical competence. It includes lexis, phonology, morphology, and avoidance. 5. Strategic competence, largely the same as Canale and Swain. It includes a set of skills for coping, communicative or communication problems as gaps in communication. This model, albeit similarities with Canale and Swain, is more specific about what each competence contains and argues that interaction of competences is a realm of strategic competence. So, in Celce-Murcia and Dörnyei model, we have sociocultural competence, linguistic competence, actional competence, discourse competence, and strategic competence. And the last point in this unit is, what is interactional competence? What is interactional competence? Drawing on Celce-Murcia model, this model is presented as an integrative construct that brings together from several other competences, including discourse competence, sociocultural competence, strategic competence. Interactional competence is not a new isolated ability. It is a reconceptualization that integrates these components with a specific focus on interaction. So, it is a reconceptualization that integrates all these components with a specific focus on interaction. The approach emphasizes how speakers and listeners jointly construct meaning in real time. Communication is a dynamic process, not simply production of correct forms. In fact, responsibility for communication cannot be attributed to one individual. Talk is co-constructed.